I know of no scientific finding with so much evidence to back it up, but that is so ignored by the news media. I think the biggest misconception about humankind is that people are selfish. They're really not. When we believe that most people are selfish, then we bring out the worst in each other, because we start designing our whole society around that idea. Well, my name is Rutger Bregman. I'm a historian and author of the new book, Humankind, A Hopeful History. Most people are pretty decent. It's a really radical and subversive idea. It means that we can totally change the way we live right now and how we organize our society. Why do we so often think that most other people are selfish? Well, it all starts with the kind of information we get. We all follow the news. And the news is mostly about exceptions. It's about things that go wrong: corruption, crisis, terrorism. If you watch the news all the time, you know exactly how the world doesn't work. You have this upside-down view of human history and human nature. We human beings, we are the stories that we tell ourselves. We become our stories. There's an old idea in Western culture that scientists call veneer theory. And so the idea is that civilization is only a thin veneer, and that as soon as something happens, say a natural disaster, an earthquake or a tsunami, that we reveal our true selves. And people will start to behave really selfishly, and they become animals or even monsters. This is what you see in the news. You know, stories of looting and plundering and violence, etc., etc. But what scientists have actually known since the 1960s, and they've now done more than 700 case studies to back this up, is that what you actually get in a moment of crisis is an explosion of altruism. And that's the first response people had during the corona crisis. Most people had something like, God, I gotta do something. I don't want to browse on Facebook anymore. I want to help. Well, this happens so often, right? If you believe in the goodness of humanity, so often you're dismissed as this naive person who doesn't have a realistic view of the world. Well, actually, I think it's the opposite. It's the cynics who are really naive. It's the cynics who focus on the exceptions instead of the vast majority of people. So we need to update our view of human nature to a much more scientific, more realistic, more hopeful view. The fascinating thing is that if you actually look at the science of all of this, for example, violence, it's really difficult. Most people can't really do it. One of the astonishing discoveries from the Second World War is that only 15 to 25% of the American soldiers actually fired their guns. Most of them couldn't do it. Psychologically, they were not capable of it. And that's what the US military discovered after the Second World War. And so they started training, conditioning, and brainwashing soldiers so that when they went to Vietnam, you know, many more soldiers were actually capable of shooting at the enemy. So I was interviewing a very good psychologist, Marie Lindegaard. She's been doing some terrific research in the so-called bystander effect, about what happens when there's an emergency, someone's drowning or attacked in the street. And scientists used to believe that the more people see something happening, the less likely it is that someone interferes. And so Marie Lindegaard was the first one who did the actual research with real people, real incidents, with, you know, real camera footage. She built the database, more than 1,000 videos, and discovered that actually in 90% of all cases, people help each other. It was a revolutionary finding. So on the one hand, human beings are the friendliest species in the animal kingdom. We can cooperate on a scale that no other animal can, and that is the secret of our success. Even though on the one hand we're one of the friendliest species in the animal kingdom, we're clearly also the cruelest. So the big question that hangs over a book about human kindness is, you know, how do you explain that? I think there's a connection between our friendliness and our cruelty, because sometimes friendliness is actually the problem. Our friendliness can sometimes morph into groupthink and tribal behavior. And then we start doing bad things, sometimes even terrible things, in the name of loyalty, because we find it hard to go against our own group. Well, people often ask me, why are so many of our leaders these horrible people, you know, trying to get as much for themselves as possible? Well, scientists have long known that power corrupts. Power is an incredibly dangerous drug. It literally damages the brain. For example, you know, the parts of your brain that are involved in feeling empathy for someone else, they don't really work anymore. The bad makes a stronger impression on us than the good, but the good is in the majority, and that's the only way the good can win, you know, with an overwhelming force. And that's how it often works in history as well. What are the most successful campaigns? Turns out it's the peaceful campaigns. The model of Gandhi and Mandela. It's only in this way that the good can win. Yes, evil is strong, you know, it hurts, but there's so much more good out there.